Yo Tundra, welcome to our final installment, episode 6 of the Snowy Bevilex 2025 Oblivion Mod Mecha Guide. Today is a completely optional segment of this video and has the highest chance of bricking your Oblivion, so proceed with this episode with extreme caution. There will be tons of disclaimers as we move throughout this part of the series, but this is also the one that will have the most impact on your games. In the last episode, we finalized and finished our Oblivion installation prior to the ENB in Oblivion Reloaded segment. Now, when you get to this part of the guide, you're going to see a link here to get to Bevilex's ENB in Oblivion Reloaded presets. Now, this is for Oblivion Reloaded Combined preset V1922, which can be found still on the orc mod page under files. You'll see orc 1922. This is still available if you would like to proceed with Bevilex's guide. If you want to deviate to make your game look exactly like mine, I'm going to be opting for a thing called Oblivion Reloaded E3 Unofficial. What this is a forked version of Oblivion Reloaded 8.3, a very old version of Oblivion Reloaded. And this focuses on the lighting and shadows of the game, with some special features that are continuously being updated as recently as December 18th. This is where our Oblivion installation will look supreme. This is what's going to take your game to the next level, adding various effects with volumetric lighting, adding a thing called specular within the shaders options that adds reflections and various lighting effects to static objects depending on the amount of light it's receiving and the direction it's coming from. It is incredible, and we're going to be installing this version of it. I'm going to be using the version that came out on December 18th, version 3.4.0. Unfortunately, if you're not using this version of Oblivion Reloaded E3, I won't be able to help you, as these things change. They completely mess with presets and ENBs. So if you want your game to look like mine, make sure you're using the exact version 3.4.0. I have also opted to use the Monkey ENB for this installation. It has explicitly stated that it is compatible with Oblivion Reloaded E3, and it's incompatible with Oblivion Reloaded Combined and Oblivion Reloaded 10+. And it is compatible with any version of Oblivion Reloaded until version 9.1. But due to the new additions with Oblivion Reloaded E3, I've decided to use Monkey ENB. So you can go ahead and download the regular Monkey ENB as well as the E3 settings. Before opening the ENB Oblivion Reloaded E3 folder, let's go ahead and make a backup of everything we have Oblivion. So you're going to navigate to your Oblivion folder. That's going to be in the Games, Steam Apps Commons section. I'm going to find where my backups are located. I have chosen to put them next to Steam, the Oblivion backups. I'm going to make a new folder and call it Oblivion main folder -game. And what you can do is, if you haven't backed yours up already, in this folder, just copy your Oblivion folder and paste it into your backup section. And then you're going to do the same thing with your inis. So have an Oblivion inis folder. Navigate to where your Oblivion ini is. My games folder, mine is located in users. My account, OneDrive, documents, my games, Oblivion, and my Oblivion ini is here. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it in here. And you can name this free ENB Oblivion ini, just in case anything happens. And also create a just backup of your my games folder. This is my pre-ENB version. And you can just copy this folder and paste it into your backups area. Editing Snowy here. Another disclaimer before you proceed with installing an ENB or Oblivion Reloaded is that AMD graphics cards severely struggle with certain processes and mods when rendering these types of shaders, and it is still an unknown in a large part of the ENB shader development world of Oblivion, so proceed at your own risk. Next, open up your Oblivion INI and make sure you no longer have it set to read-only by going to your location of this INI file, right-clicking Properties, and turn off read-only. Click Apply. Editing Snowy here to remind you guys that before you install Oblivion Reloaded E3 or ENB series, you're going to want to make sure the following are accurate and true within your game INI settings. First, we got to make sure that our OBSE still works. Steam users must disable the Steam overlay, and the following game INI settings are required. They should be applied prior to installing these mods. And if you want the full document for this, this is going to be in your Oblivion Reloaded E3 file that you download from the Nexus page, mod page. Make sure that your texture size is set to large. Fades are max. I'm choosing to opt for object and item fade at 60%, but the author recommends a fade of max, view distance max, distance, objects, land, building, trees are all on, shadows on trees are on, tree canopy shadows are on, shadow filtering high, specular distance is 100%, HDR lighting on, bloom lighting off, water detail high, water reflections on, water ripples on, water reflections on, and blood decals high. Once you have these settings saved in your game, make sure you load up a new character and press the tilde key or open the console, type in save INI, all one word, press enter, and that will ensure that your settings are set correctly before the installation of Oblivion Reloaded and ENB series. As per the Oblivion Reloaded creator, the following Oblivion INI tweaks are recommended. Press Ctrl F and type F flicker, and make sure your F flicker movement is set to 0. Next, type in I post process and change the milliseconds loading queued priority to 100. And also change the I post process milliseconds to 25. Next, search for uGrid and change the distant tree range to 30. Also change the uGrid distant count to 50. Next, type B use water. And the recommended settings from the Oblivion Reloaded author is the water reflections misc, water reflections statics, water reflections trees, and water reflections actors are set to 0. While retaining B use water reflections at 1. For the sake of the showcase that you guys have seen, I have opted to turn all of these on. And I haven't seen massive performance hits yet, but I am using a NVIDIA GTX 4070 along with a Ryzen 9 9900X. Next, search for F-Jump Anim Delay. F-Jump. And change this to 0.2500. Next, look for F LOD tree mipmap. Change the F LOD tree mipmap LOD bias from 0.7500 to 0.5000. And change the F local tree mipmap LOD bias to 0.0000. Next, search for B grass point lighting. Change this to 1. Next, search up F light LOD. Change F light LOD2 to 5000. It's important to note that Bevilex recommends this value to be set to 6000. The mod author for Oblivion Reloaded E3 does not specify any setting for F-Light LOD1, but Bevilex changed this to 4,000. So for Bevilex, it was at 5,000, or at 6,000 F-Light LOD2 and 4,000 for F-Light LOD1. I have opted to go with the Oblivion Reloaded setting of 5,000 for F-Light LOD2, but I've also retained Bevilex's value of F-Light LOD1 to be 4,000. Next, since we are using the ENB series shaders, we're going to change the BU's refraction shader to 0. Make sure this is at 0 if you are using ENB. Also, now as a reminder, since we do have the ability to do borderless windowed, make sure that while we're in the Oblivion INI that you change the B full screen to 0 if you would like to have a borderless window, along with your resolution for that borderless window underneath set correctly. Also, change your B local map shader to 0 if it isn't already, as this allows you to have color in your local maps. Then you're going to press Ctrl S or File Save. And finally, go back to your Oblivion INI, right click it, Properties, change it back to Read Only, click Apply and OK. So that way these settings will not be overridden or changed. Once you have everything backed up, you're now ready to get to the folder 11 ENB Oblivion Reloaded E3 page. And you're going to want to first extract the ENB series Oblivion version 0500. Now I have tested that this does work. There is the optional old ENB v181, which is used by the Oblivion Reloaded E3 creator, as well as Bevilex. I have chosen to use the updated version of the ENB series. You can find this via the link provided, but you can see that the ENB series version 0.500 for Elder Scrolls Oblivion was updated the 29th of February this year. A requested mix of the 0.181 graphic mod with 0.258 memory manager EM boost with some minor bug fixes. You're going to want to right click and click extract files. Go ahead and open that folder, go into the wrapper version, and you're going to take the d3d9.dll, copy that, and you're going to paste that into your Oblivion root folder, Steam Apps Common Oblivion. That's all you need from the ENB series. Next, you're going to select your ENB of choice. Once again, I have chosen to go with Monkey ENB. So if you want your game to look like mine, make sure you use this. Go ahead and open that first folder. You're going to see the Monkey ENB. Let's go ahead and extract that. And you're going to grab all 7 of these files, and you're going to copy these and paste them into the root folder of your Oblivion, so that is going to be next to your Oblivion EXE, your Oblivion launcher, and the d3d9.dll we just added. Paste those in. And now you've installed the Monkey ENB. Next are a bunch of presets, and I have this set, a little bit of a readme for you guys when you open it. I don't actually use these presets directly, I use some of them. So my presets, I'm going to find a way to provide either through this guide video or via a download with my Oblivion Reloaded E3 settings. These are the Monkey ENB E3 settings, so if you want to try to get your game to look exactly like the Monkey ENB screenshots, then go ahead and use these preset settings. Now, because we're going to use some of these, you're still going to want to extract them. Huge shoutouts to the creator of Monkey ENB, Monkey Angie, for these preset settings. We are using many of them. So we'll come back to this later. For now, you can go back 2 folders, back to the folder for our optional ENB Oblivion Reloaded E3. Go to the Oblivion Reloaded E3 tab and go ahead and right-click, extract those files. You're going to want to open up the Oblivion Reloaded E3 folder that you just extracted, and you're going to take the 7 folders, you can leave out the readmes, you're going to copy these, and you're going to want to paste them into the data folder of your Oblivion. You do not want to put them in the root, put them in the Oblivion data section. and you're going to click replace files in the destination. And now you've just installed Oblivion Reloaded E3. Okay, now that we have the Oblivion Reloaded E3 installed, we can now work with those presets. These just installed some shader effects for your game, as you'll notice by the highlights in the panel. And what we can do now is open this folder, go to the Oblivion Reloaded section. We're going to be replacing some of these with the presets that I've chosen. Alternatively, if there is a download, you're just going to have to download, and you can take my presets, put them into Rybash, right-click and install, and it'll override those shaders with the ones I have chosen. At the time of the recording of this video, I'm going to require you guys to follow these exact instructions, as this is mostly a combination of the Oblivion Reloaded E3 presets and Monkey ENB's preset. So now go back to your ENB of choice, Monkey ENB in this case for me. Open up the optional Monkey ENB preset. Now you can open these up and you can see there's OBSE and there's also shaders here. What you're going to do is open up the shaders folder until you see these 11 folders. We are going to be using the ambient occlusion that's provided by Oblivion Reloaded. We're going to be taking the Bloom folder from Monkey ENB. So you can copy that and paste it over top the Oblivion Reloaded shaders folder and click replace the file in the destination. Cinema is deactivated by default, and so we are going to leave the Oblivion Reloaded Cinema. The coloring shader, we are also going to be using the Oblivion Reloaded E3 preset. Depth of field will be my own preset that I've made for the series that we will tweak in just a moment. God Rays, we're going to be using the Monkey ENB preset, so select the God Rays folder and paste that in the Oblivion Reloaded shaders folder and replace file in the destination. Precipitations, we're using Monkey ENB's preset, so copy this folder and paste it into the Oblivion Reloaded shaders, replace files. The shadows folder, I have opted to stick with the Oblivion Reloaded E3 presets. The skin shader, I have opted to use the Oblivion Reloaded E3. So we'll skip this. The terrain, I have chosen to use the Oblivion Reloaded E3 preset. And for water, I'm going to be using the Monkey ENB preset. So you can press Ctrl-C or right-click copy, paste this, and replace files in the destination. And now let's edit our depth of field any by opening the depth of field shader, open the depth of field any, and enter the following values. First person enabled, mode 0, distant blur 0, 900, 1000. Base blur radius change to 0.8. Change the radius from 8 to 4. The near blur cutoff from 0.8 to 12. Third person view to 0 under enabled. And then press Ctrl S or file save. Now you can close that out, and you've now finished your Oblivion Reloaded preset installation. Next, we're going to edit the ENB series ini. Go ahead and open that. It is located in your Steam Apps Common Oblivion root folder next to the EXEs. We're going to change the following ENB series values. Press Ctrl F, enable volumetric rays. Change this from false to true. Next, copy the following command lines that you see on the right panel. And you're going to put these at the bottom underneath the exponential fade interior night. Memory, reduce, system, memory, usage equals true. Disable, driver, memory, manager equals true. Disable, preload to VRAM, false. Enable, unsafe memory hacks equals false. Reserved, memory size MB equals 512. Video memory size MB equals 0. Enable compression equals false. Next, search camera FX and change the following values. Lens reflection intensity day 0.2. Lens reflection intensity night 0.2. Lens reflection intensity interior 0.2. Lens reflection intensity interior day 0.2. Lens reflection intensity interior night 0.2. Lens reflection power interior day 0.5. Lens reflection power interior night 0.5. Press Ctrl S or File Save. Next, navigate to the Data folder, navigate to OBSE Plugins, and find OblivionReloaded INI. Open this up and make the following changes. FOV, change to 90 if it's not already. Anisotropic filter, change that to 4. Interior dimmer coefficient, make sure that is 0.7. Grass mode, change this from 0 to 1. Search for effects, change bloom to 1. Coloring to 1. Depth of field to 1. Motion blur to 0. SMAA to 1. Ensure volumetric fog is 0. Change volumetric light to 1. Water lens 1. Okay, a few things here before we move on. It's worth noting that you don't need to enable volumetric light and God rays. Since the time of the guide series, I have turned off God rays. I've ran some tests. It sort of doubles up an effect that already exists when you're enabling volumetric light, and it's really up to you on your preference. If you find that in the graphical showcase that you don't like all the extra kind of fog and rays that the fog have, then you can opt for God rays and turn with 1, and you can turn off volumetric light back to 0 instead of 1, based on your preference. I much prefer the volumetric light, as to me it adds a level of immersion like no other for a game this old. Additionally, for the graphical showcase video that many of you have maybe seen by now, I did not have depth of field enabled during this, but I will turn it back on for the gameplay live series. Also, in the next section where Snowy turns off the info enabled, you can leave this on as 1. I just don't like accidentally opening the menu and saving any kind of changes mid-playthrough, but this should allow you to make some tweaks and do some tests within the game, and so for most people it makes no sense to turn this off. You can probably leave this as 1. Thanks, guys. Search for Purger. Ensure that this is enabled, and I have changed the menu info enabled to 0. Press Ctrl S or File Save. Next, go back. There's one additional shader that we forgot to change in the shaders folder within your Oblivion data folder. Go to Shaders, Oblivion Reloaded. Go down to Specular. Open up this INI and change the values to match the default values below, which is going to be Power Actors 5, Power Objects 1, Specular Power of 0.6, Sun Power of 3.0. And press Ctrl S and close. Now your Oblivion Reloaded E3, along with your installation of ENB series, should be complete. We're now going to move on to all of the additional mods and edited mods from the installation up to this point for the series. First, under the updated mods, you're going to see the Stability OBSE Fixes patches. There's now a 22 and 23 folder. I have gone and uninstalled the droplet torches. I didn't like the torches being automatically thrown when I put a two-handed weapon away, as it was really immersion breaking for me, as I like to use magic for lighting effects. And also the picking up of torches after they're thrown would auto-equip them, and there was no any change that we could make. So I went ahead and created my own custom and installed a new droplet torch mod. Here is my any if you would like to copy it. I believe the only change I made, I removed the semicolon so it can be read by the any, changed it to the DirectX scan code button of choice for me at 78, which would be numpad plus. And at the bottom, I set the droplet torch time from 0.25 as it felt unresponsive to 0.1. And then I press Control S or File, Save, and then close. You can go ahead and install that after the GoGo Torch hotkey. And if you would like a form ID finder, if you have any bugs in the game, this is a handy mod to install. And I put this at the very end, the 23rd, that would go into the stability OBSC fixes and patches. And a reminder that before you boot your Oblivion again to checkmark any new ESPs these might be adding, boss sort them, and rebuild your bash patch. Next is an edit to the body armors and weapons section where I've added the arena raiment replacer. The reason is that the VGR version, the Vanilla Gear Redux mod version of the armors at the arena felt very revealing and out of its place for the type of installation or the type of modded playthrough I wanted. So I went ahead and found a new replacer. I made a new custom with the data folder, meshes, and the armor being located so I could actually install this through Rybash, as the default RAR file has replacer and then directly to meshes along with the readme that I deleted. And you're going to want to install this after Doll's Horse Armor. I forgot that I also edited the grass, trees, and landscape section with a new Harvest Flora variant of our flora and uninstalled the flowers.7z from CatCat. The reason is that the lighting points provided were not functioning with the shaders that I was using, and they do work with Harvest Flora, which will allow plants to change shape and form upon harvesting. The models are going to look different from the CatCat models that were updated, and it's unfortunate that the CatCat versions did not work. I attempted to fix these in NifScope, but I ended up giving up as it became a little bit too difficult for what it felt it was worth to me. So I've installed Harvest Flora in place of CatCat's Flora replacer. So you will see that in your folder. It'll say 12 either Flora replacer or Harvest Flora now. I've also gone and edited the zip that you will be using with your Oblivion stutter remover if you choose to use my preset, as I realized that 80 frames was pushing my graphics card for more frames than were needed for this game, as over 60 FPS generally will be unnoticeable in a game as old as Oblivion. So you can go into your OBSE plugins, find your Oblivion stutter remover any, and change the max FPS value from 80 to 65. That's going to be F maximum FPS. Change that to 65 plus Control S to save it. I've chosen this specific value because it worked for me. Anything less than 60 caused my game to stutter. It's worth noting that within the Oblivion Reloaded ini, you can find the screenshot path as a new folder has been created along with the screenshot key, which is defaulted to F11. I went ahead and created a mouse macro so I can just press the button. It'll open the console, take the screenshot, close the console, and it'll save it to the screenshots folder. Next, it's worth noting that the Lights of Oblivion Road Lanterns mod will pronounce the Oblivion engine's problems it has with point lighting and multiple points of light being rendered. Utilizing the setup we have with the Bevilex Modlist, I've noticed that the generation of the Far Cry grass can be pretty close and near and around these lanterns, causing shadow flickering, but it is not the mod's fault. It is the game engine's capabilities. I have searched extensively for the culprit of this, and it is not from the Lights of Oblivion Road Lanterns mod. You'll actually see this problem when multiple NPCs or yourself are using different lighting sources simultaneously. That is not a bug, that is a limitation of the Oblivion engine. I have chosen to keep these in my game as I believe these to be extremely immersive. I also reinstalled the animated Windows lighting system to have the exact same settings prior, but with one additional OBSE advanced setting that changes the amount of smoke from chimneys and when the windows are turned on and off depending on weather, etc. I realized that with the stability of my game that I would try to have it even more immersive, and so far it seems to be working. So I went ahead and reinstalled that by uninstalling, deleting, redragging the zip file over, moving it to the same exact location, reinstalling, rerunning BOSS, rebuilding the bash patch. I will also mention that the camera I'm not using any longer. I have run into so many problems. I've tried to make my own custom. You cannot really use this with ambient occlusion, along with a beautiful mod that allows your character's head to move and turn with your camera, as these will break currently with the lighting choices we have made with our presets, along with OblivionReloaded E3 and our ENB series settings. If this is a super important mod for you, you can opt to turn off some of the visuals like ambient occlusion to see if that fixes your problems. I have changed the loop menu any with the following changes. All that this will do is prevent me from having to reuse Link within the settings of loot at the start of any new Oblivion character creation. This sets a preset or a default for all of my characters. Loop menu max visible items from 6 to 8. Loop menu style from 2 to 1. Loop menu show label icons from 2 to 1. Loop menu show label text from 1 to 2. As well as loop menu minimum items to take from 5 to 1. You set this to your own personal preference, but this is where you're going to make those changes. Press Ctrl S or File and Save. Next, it's worth noting that in the Stability OBSE fixes, you will see now under Walk Blessed, Diagonal Move, there is a optional AR preset. I found a video showcasing various Oblivion mods from earlier this year, and they had shown off a beautiful camera preset that mimics Skyrim a little bit, and a third-person view distance changer for when you have a weapon sheathed versus when you have a weapon unsheathed, as well as a camera preset for Walk Blessed. I tried both of these presets and chose not to use them. Now we can move on to the additional mods that I have curated for my own playthrough, starting with magical arrows. You can just put this into your Rybash, right-click, install. This comes with a Magic Arrows ESP. Next is magical effects for ENB, in which you can also drag this into Rybash, right-click it, install, also coming with an ESP. Next is the optional Magic Visual Overhaul, which has 3 folders here, having the Magic Visuals Overhaul base file, which I went ahead and edited. What I've chosen to edit here is under the textures, Magic, Mysticism 01.dds, and Mysticism 02.dds. I have tripled their size, as these are the particle effects for when you're using Detect Life spells. They felt a little bit too small for our ENB and our choice of lighting, so I increased their size by 3 times in a free program called GIMP 2.0, and I went ahead and exported those as their DDS file formats, and I repackaged this and overrided the original files into a custom install. I dragged that into my Rybash, and then I right-clicked and installed the Magic Visuals Overhaul ESP with it. Next, I installed the Detect Life texture fix, which is for the effects around your character. And you'll see that here. I just right-clicked and clicked install. And then I installed the lightning crash fix to be extra safe. Drag that into Rybash, right-click install. That will override the ESP that the mod creator originally was using, and now will appear as orange in Rybash. I went ahead and overrided the Shockbolt NIF in our Oblivion Data Meshes Magic Effects folder with the one provided by the Magical Effects for ENB from the mod creator of the Magical Effects overhaul as well, but this is an older version of the Shockbolt that I much preferred that still kept and retained that explosive, bright, vibrant feel. So I went ahead and went into the Meshes, Magic Effects, and I took the Shockbolt.NIF from 2017 and I overrided the one that we just installed from the Magic Visuals overhaul. Next, I installed the Enchantment's Cost Multiplier by simply dragging and dropping that into Rybash, right-clicking and installing. Then I installed the Create Enchanted Arrows mod, which I've provided the recipes that are in the docs file as they're not available within the game. Dragged that into Rybash, right-clicked install, and make sure you have the Create Enchanted Arrows ESP as well. Oh, also within the folder, I have a screenshot showing who to purchase these from. It's at the Shaden Hall Mages Guild for the spells to be able to create enchanted arrows. Next, you're going to see an optional enhanced hotkey. I've chosen not to use these. They are incredibly helpful, but I have chosen not to and provided a README. And I would recommend not using this because it can cause crashes or worse, as it requires access to your Oblivion INI to function, meaning you'd have to turn it off of read only. It's amazing as it allows up to like 40 configurable hotkeys, multiple hotkey wheels, but the uninstallation seems like it could be problematic for saves that contained this mod previously. And so I've just heard that for user ease, this is not the mod for that, so I've chosen not to install it, but I've had a comment during our Let's Play of someone wondering why we weren't using this, as it's a mod that they seem to be very passionate about. So I threw that in as an optional. The 7th folder is the Landscape LOD Generator, which I've included 2 folders, the batch file creation. These I recommend reading quite a bit about, but what you're going to do is take the batch files provided, and you're going to be putting these into your Oblivion data folder. All of these items, the docs, any, all the way down to the .dat file. As far as explaining how to generate LOD, read up on the Nexus forums if you're interested, and make sure you learn how to use the GUI. This in itself could be its own video as it is quite complex, but provided are all the links needed to do the job, which generates new maps for your world in higher resolutions, so that way in the distance things appear to be more refined and more detailed, including the way the landscape interacts with the water and surroundings. What you can do is also download the Ultimate Edition of the default textures from the game, but it won't include your mod load order like we have Kvatch rebuilt, and it actually included the grassy ground from around Kvatch for the rebuilding process, but the trees are still not rendered properly, and that's because of a shader that we're using with Oblivion Reloaded. If you want to use exclusively your own LODs, which I would not recommend, as I've attempted to use them and they don't look good, in my opinion. They look far worse outside of the Oblivion Reloaded E3's shader pack. What you can do is navigate to your shaders, Oblivion Reloaded, Terrain, and you can delete the SLS 2001.pso, the SLS 2001.vso, and the SLS 2068.pso. If you delete these, LODs generated will look more like what you've created through the GUI using the Test for All LOD creation tool. Included is the Shivering Isles fix, which you'll have to read about how to use. I went ahead and included a quick guide to the Test for All generation from the Nexus forums you'll see here that explains how to utilize the functions here. And it's worth noting that I have seen some people with AMD graphics cards also having issues with this process. And so what I've included is a BMP DDS converter if you end up making your own maps and exporting them as a BMP exclusively due to the DDS compression problems that can occur. Also, this can be found on the forums within Nexus. And last but not least is the Smart Greeting mod, which is amazing. It allows NPCs to only greet you if you look at their face, if you look at them. Or if they come across your screen, they'll greet you. Rather than greeting potentially every 20 seconds, they are now limited to every 10 minutes, which makes it feel even more immersive. Now, there are a lot of other immersive mods out there that you can get, but due to conflictions with other mods we have, this was the final list that I have chosen for our 2025 Let's Play we're going to be doing on the channel. I'm also going to provide a graphical showcase video of just the Oblivion world and sounds, showcasing different regions and weathers of what this game looks like, and that will be provided in the description below if you want to see more. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I am not a full-time Elder Scrolls creator. I do a lot of Pokemon content on our main channel, or at least our primary streaming channel. This is purely out of the joy I have for the Elder Scrolls series that I've made this series, as it is my favorite game of all time, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, and I would love to see you guys in the live streams. I wanted to address some of the current issues and unfixable problems that I've seen with this build of Oblivion. That way everyone is aware of some of the issues they may come to expect. The first thing is going to be the multiple lighting points issue, where in the game, if you have two torches from two different NPCs, including maybe a campfire, a fireball spell going off, anything like that, the game's engine is limited in what types of shadows it can produce. So don't be surprised if you see this all over the place in your game. The game engine itself struggles with handling all of these points. And when you see the lights of Oblivion road lanterns and the grasses around those road lanterns at night, if you're running up with a torch and you see any kind of flickering, things like this are to be expected. And it's actually due to the additional grass spawns that can occur around these road lanterns. It's not the road lanterns mod, so make sure you guys do not blame the mod author. It is definitely a limitation from the Oblivion game engine, from everything that I've seen and read. This also applies to different foliage, especially the 3D foliage that you're going to be seeing in the Nibene Basin and Valley around Leowen. There's a road bridge near Breville titled Breville Briedge, B-R-I-E-D-G-E, 03.nif, that I was running into all sorts of issues with lighting, reflections, and I decided it wasn't worth my time to try and attempt to fix, as getting into this would require unpacking the Oblivion BSAs to try and fix in NifScope. And I decided to skip this particular fix for this guide. But when you do come across this bridge, it will not be lit from torches. It's around Breville. You will be able to see lighting effects from the sun and the environment, though. Also, you'll be seeing occasionally some shadow issues as you render them. I don't know if it's a volumetric lighting issue or a specular shading issue, but it's when you are loading in certain areas, you'll sometimes see some shadow lines coming across until they're fixed. I also think this could be related to the NAO weather changes, including some of the god rays that are going to be affecting the sun. Not exactly sure what it is, but it doesn't break my immersion. But you guys can look in the graphical showcases and see this for yourself. Additionally, the test for all LOD generated maps sometimes will have these rendered lines in between them, as it creates a grid when you generate your LOD using the GUI. And these grid lines are also attributed to the limitations of the in-game engine once again. Apparently, Fallout did not have this limitation with a different amount of points that could be drawn, with Oblivion only having one level of LOD to be displayed. One special place I've seen this is going to be north of Coral, north of Cloud Top. You will see some generated lines. Another weird issue I've seen with all ENB over the years has been the rendering of shaders when loading interior cells. Meaning when you load a save that's been in an interior cell, occasionally when you leave to an exterior, your shaders will fail to have initialized completely or wholly. A simple fix is going to be remembering to make your saves in those external areas before you log off, or saving and reloading your game, rebooting it entirely, loading the external cell until your shaders initialize properly. This is something I've been experiencing for a very long time using ENB, and it's not a make or break problem for me. If you decide to use the custom enhanced camera that is stated to be compatible with OblivionReloaded E3, the previous version that we're using, keep in mind there are issues with ambient occlusion and other lighting shaders that we are using that will render a weird gray overlay showing the ambient occlusion in a certain loaded region even after you leave. An example of this would be if you're looking into a dark corner and you open a menu or a quest pop-up comes up. When it closes, sometimes you turn your camera, the shaders will still show the ambient occlusion, and the front of your screen may appear to be extremely dark with an overlay. A simple fix is to not use the custom enhanced camera, or to attempt to change some of the shaders that you're rendering and some of the other ENB options like ambient occlusion. Aurora in Motion, the mod that adds the Aurora Borealis when you're in the northern points of Cyrodiil around the Gerals, will occasionally have flickering with the meshes that are provided. I've attempted to fix these in Nifscope and I have had no success. There are still flickering problems occasionally if I'm looking directly at them into the sky. They also are 2D statics, so they're going to follow you as you turn your camera, and they might look a little bit janky in our current build. If you're using a build with an extreme amount of depth of field, then this will be much less of an issue, and if the weather is in your favor. I still prefer leaving the Aurora in Motion, as I believe for general gameplay it adds a beautiful fine detail to your northern weathers in this game. Also, I've chosen, as stated previously, to not use the enhanced hotkeys due to the need to access your Oblivion INI to make changes throughout the hotkey adding and removing process. I don't trust this, and so I'm stating this only because I've had comments on the previous Let's Play from people who are very passionate about this mod, and I've still chosen to not utilize the enhanced hotkeys. I will stick with the default wheel of 1 through 8 with additional mod hotkeys like for the torch. Before we close out this segment, I wanted to share that on our Nexus mod page, which will be in the description below, I will continuously update that Nexus page with anything that I find that is broken, bugged, or not working as intended. And I also wanted to mention that I went ahead and reinstalled the AWLS mod, which is the animated windows and lighting systems mod with the chimneys. And I decided to reinstall that without the chimney smoke, as with ENB and the lighting effects. It was making it feel less immersive, so I have retained all of the window animated systems, but I have opted to remove the chimney smoke, which you guys will see in the graphical showcase if you want to check that out, also in the description. And also, there are some floating smoke particles that I've been seeing throughout Cyrodiil. It's in very specific locations, like the basement of the Bevilex Mages Guild. I want to give a huge shout out to everyone who is involved in the modding space for Elder Scrolls, and especially with the Oblivion creators. If any of your guys' mods were featured in this guide within this build, I want to thank you personally for allowing me to recreate some of my childhood memories and relive them in a way I could never fathom. Also, I want to give a huge thank you to Bevilex for providing a beautiful list of mods for us to use, and I hope everyone here has enjoyed this series. If you've made it through all of this, then thank you for supporting me and this channel. I hope to keep Oblivion modding alive and share this beautiful space with many other people if I can. Thank you for watching, stay frosty, and have a wonderful or terrible time in Cyrodiil. Bye now.